Hey, what's up? Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's up, everyone that's in the chat? What's up, Chance? How you doing? CJ Rich, good morning. Um, Chance says, what's up, Wave? Great fight last night. Benavidez did its thing. Morrell future is real bright. This is Roy Jones B-Hop situation. Rematch once Morrell gets his experience and profile up. I like the comparison. I don't know if these guys are going to be legendary like those two were, but I like the comparison. And then actually, B Hop and Roy Jones fight was actually one of the earliest fights that I actually remember vividly, as far as like remember exactly where I was. Always go back to that fight because it's one of those early fights that I remember watching live, and I remember exactly where I was when I watched that fight. Um, but yeah, we're going to talk about all of that today. I'm going to cover the three main fights of the card. Okay, just going to review them in order, and we're going to go, and talk a lot more about Benavidez and Morrell and the future of those two. And yeah, overall, first off, I want to shout out to everyone that was here last night. It was a good time. Shout out to my dad for coming through. Shout out to all the supporters of the channel. I felt like everybody was here. Everyone that normally was here last night. So, even if you weren't able to stay for the entire live, um, just shout out to you for even checking in last night. You know what I mean? I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you for all of the donations that I received, right here on YouTube, and even on the people that reached out to me on Cashapp. Appreciate that too. And it was another good time. It was a good time. We did 6 hours, and it didn't really feel dull at any moment. The fights were decent. They were pretty good. I mean, the pre-fights were decent. The fight card itself was pretty good. I don't think it was worth, $80, but I said that before the fight. I don't know what the future of PBC is going to be with Amazon, but I think at some point, the high price pay-per-views is it's not going to be a thing for too long. You know what I mean? People are going to always find ways to watch it anyway, but I guess they assume that people are going to stream it anyway, so they like, let's jack up the price. It is what it is to pay these guys. But look, overall, I thought it was a pretty good fight. The main event, I thought it was a pretty good fight. I'm not disappointed at anyone. You know what I mean? I think they both showed up. You know what I mean? And I think they both did what they had to do. And I think last night's fight answered a lot of questions on both of them, and where we can actually currently rate them. You know, but I had a great time. And we're gonna talk about everything from last night. There's not really much to really say about Ramos, and Jason Rosario. I don't think Jason Rosario's been a contender since like roughly around after losing to Charlo. I think all things went downhill for him. I know he recently came back. I know he's fighting at 160. Ramos definitely has potential, championship potential, now that he's at 160. It's a weaker division. There's not too many big people there. Now that he's at, and I didn't know he was at 160 in the fight last night, but now that he is at 160, excuse me, I don't want to see him in a title shot right away, but I would love to see him fight like a guy like an Ammo Williams. I think that's the right fight to make at 160. Austin Williams would be a good fight. Austin was a contender for some time. He went and lost to Hamza Shiraz, but he gave him a good fight, and he was able to hurt him a couple of times in that fight. I think that would be a somewhere like someone that's maybe not champion, but someone's a top contender. You know, I mean, obviously, if they were to put him against a champion, he would take it. He should take it. But there's really not much to really tell. Like Ramos' box is really good. I like his cardio. But I thought he had a little bit more power than that. I think that's the one thing. I think that's the one thing. If I have to criticize anything, it would be the power. You know, I thought, but again, it is at 160. You know, it's not at 54. It seemed to be a lot more powerful at 54. I think at 160. And I know Jason Rosario is not like a career 160 guy, whatever. He's not a big 160, but still, I thought even though he got the stoppage, he did drop him. You know, Joe Jason has never had great punch resistance, and it's gotten worse over the years. And the way Brian Mendoza just knocked him out, you know what I mean? Maybe it has to do with Rosario being at 54. Maybe he was drained at the weight, you know what I mean? I don't know. I really don't know. But Ramos, as far as boxing, looked very good. He looked like I know, you know, I'm a fan of him. So he looks like how he normally look. But I didn't see a power like that, you know. But he boxes good. Uh Brian says Ramos against Lara. I mean, yeah, listen, if they give him a call about Lara, go for it. You know, it'll be easy fight to make. They're both PBC. I would love to see Lara or anybody at 160 for a unification. You know, I know Lara's old, but Lara still has that tricky style, and he's different from what he used to be. You know what I mean? He actually sits down on his punches a lot more, doesn't move nearly as much as he used to. All right. But that's all I really got to say about that fight. Now, let's start with let's discuss Pitbull Cruz and Angel Fiero. Right? Close fight. You know, it was a close fight. It was a 10 rounder. It was back and forth. You know, I don't think Pitbull belongs at 140. You know, I think if his power is really not that effective, he's not that effective at the boxer. You know, let's just be real. You know, he is a brawling type of fighter. Um, he's a small 135 pounder. He's the only guy that I've seen Tank fought that was shorter than him. And he's just not a big guy. And he's very powerful. And him fighting guys like this at 140, it just goes to show you can land as many punches as you could. It just, I don't see the power at 140. You know, I don't see it. And then people already, the thing about Pitbull, you know, people already question whether or not you're like legit. Like a lot of people still don't think you're really legit. So now you're at a higher division. You're not fighting the elites at 140. You know, you lost to Rayo, but Rayo is not even proven at 140 yet. But you lost to him, and it was a good fight. Listen, this fight was close with Rayo. It was a split decision. It was a close fight. I don't think Pitbull won, but you knocked out Rolly Romero, who's to me is just not good. You know, he's just a guy that is close with, you know, Floyd and them, and he gets good opportunities because people are interested in seeing him fight for whatever reason, because he talks a lot. But look, he's just not proven, you know. And when I look at his resume here, Angel Fiero, close fight. I think what made that fight competitive really is because Fiero was able to take his power. But I don't see if Fiero looking like an elite guy at 140. I think all of the elite guys at 140 beats Fiero, you know. Jose Valenzuela, he took a loss. You know, it's whatever. It was a close fight. It was a good fight. Rolly Romero, I don't even rate Rolly. You know, I don't rate Rolly at all. I don't see I don't see what everybody else sees in Rolly Romero. Giovanni Cabrera is another close fight that Pitbull could have possibly lost, you know? But then we go down to the fights like Eduardo Ramirez and Uriel Gamboa, where he just knocks and destroys these guys. Those are the fights that make him look like a monster. But since then, it's been just, again, look at the level of the people he's knocking out. You know, they're not high level fighters. That's Rolly. That's Gamboa at the age that he's at. You know, this is not young Gamboa. This is not even the Gamboa that Tank fought. This is not even the Gamboa that Crawford fought. This is really old Gamboa. You know what I mean? With no legs left. His best performance is his loss to Tank Davis. And I really feel like they've been saving him for a good fight. And they've just been moving them carefully. You know, obviously the Rayo fight was a good opportunity because it was a title fight. So those are always good to take that risk. But outside of that, I feel like they just been saving him for a good fight. I think at one point they probably was going to use him as a rematch for Tank. I hope that never happens. I hope that never happens. Like, I do not want to see that fight. But I do want to see Pitbull back at 135. I would love to see him against Frank Martin. You know, I want him to return. We was talking about him last night. I would love for Frank Martin to jump on the card soon. I would love to see him against like a William Cepeda maybe, and a few other fighters at 135. You know, but he doesn't compete at 140 in my opinion. That power is not there at 140. You know, and I don't want to take any credit away from Fiero because Fiero has never been stopped. He has a couple losses, couple draws or whatever. He's never been stopped. I don't know if he's ever been knocked out. He took the power well, but he was clearly way bigger than Pitbull Cruz last night. You know, I mean, it was clear that it looked like he was a couple divisions up. You know, he probably weighed about 150 last night, you know. Just I don't really know what else. I don't have anything else for Pitbull, really. You know, I don't know how like they're gonna keep going with this without really putting them in there with someone dangerous, you know. But I hope, and I've been saying for a couple years now, even before Frank fought Tank, I would have loved to see a fight between Pitbull and Frank Martin. I think that's a pretty good fight. You know, still think it's a good fight, but I think he belongs at 135. But the way that he looks, if they could give him a risky fight that's worth the reward, I see them doing it again. If not, I see them throwing him in there with someone like a Chris Colbert or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, MAW. Shout out to MAW was here last night. Yeah, the scorecards were definitely a little weird on this card. You know, I think the 96-94 was fair. I even think the 97-93 wasn't too bad, you know. But I think the 98-92 was a little too wild. I think at the very, 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 very least, because there was definitely some swing rounds in there, and this was only a 10-round fight. I think at the very least, Fiero secured 3 rounds, probably 4. At the very, very least. You know, there was people in the chat that thought that Fiero edged it. Me personally, I thought it was going to be a draw. Like, I didn't officially score round by round. Like, I didn't keep up. But I think I felt outside of scoring after the fight was over, I didn't felt like there was a clear winner. You know, I didn't think Fiero did enough to win, but I think it was very questionable whether or not Pitbull won too. But I was cool with him being a round or 2 up. But I think just giving Fiero 2 rounds, I thought it was a little bit ridiculous. But, you know, it is what it is. He gave us a good performance. And I personally thought that was probably the best action-packed fight of the fight of the night. You know, I think I think there was like 1 or 2 rounds between those two. Like it was, or maybe 2 or 3 rounds that was really, really good, like back and forth, action packed type of rounds. So I think we enjoyed that fight the most last night. I think the second best fight was definitely Morrell and Benavidez, but I think the most action packed fight was probably that fight, the most competitive fight in my opinion. All right. But you can't tell that from these scorecards, you know. Um, but yeah, that's what I think about Pitbull. Go back down to 135, bro. I don't know if he's having issues making a weight, but it's gonna be harder to knock guys out at 140 unless you're knocking out guys that's moving up with you, like Rolly did. You know. All right, so that's just my opinion on Pitbull Cruz. All right. Excuse me. All right, so let's speak on Fulton and Figueroa too. Now, this one, and I think we all can agree. I think a lot of us dropped the ball. I mean, luckily, I didn't put any money up for this fight. I didn't put any money up. I was not sure what this fight was going to do. I told you guys that early in the live. No betting on this fight. But in my breakdown, I did lean towards Figueroa because I just wasn't sure where Fulton was going to be at, and when I say be at, I didn't know where he was going to be from a mental standpoint. I just didn't know. I didn't know. A lot of people felt that Figueroa won the first fight. It's not that I didn't I didn't disagree with that. It's just more like, and I said this in a breakdown. I think the fight could have gone either way. It could have been a draw. I just don't think Fulton, from the comments that I've seen, I don't think he got credit for the great work he was doing on the inside and creating space between the two. This was a different fight. This rematch, I think Fulton, or maybe not Fulton, I think with Figueroa, I think he started out, the game plan just didn't work for him. I think whatever he did, he would have lost anyway. But Fig, to me, came out in the first 3 rounds thinking that he was going to try to box with Fulton. I think him and his team probably watched that Castro fight, right? And I think they thought that with a jab that they were going to try to neutralize Fulton, because Castro he was very successful with his jab in that fight for the majority of that fight. I mean, that was the punch that Fulton really had issues with in that fight. And Figueroa looked quicker, like his jab looked like it improved. But he was never going to outbox Fulton. Jab and no jab, he was never going to win that way. So I just think momentum wise, I think he gave like 3 or 4 rounds up just trying to fight on the outside with him. There was times he did charge in like that, but I think when the ref started separating them quickly, it kind of forced them to try to box with Fulton. And the one thing that Fulton had a lot of success in the first fight was the 1-2 from the outside. His jab and his straight right hand was on the money in the first fight. And this is why right away, Figueroa in the first round, he took a couple right hands from the outside and he started charging his way in. But that ref in the first fight allowed the fight to play out. He didn't just step in quickly and separate them two like the way Harvey Dark did last night. It was a completely different fight. And to be honest, Fig didn't really have nothing that he can do. All he did round by round, all the way up into the championship rounds, would just be more aggressive with each round. And then Fulton did start to slow down. Like he started fading a little bit towards the championship rounds. But even then, he still had enough control to avoid most of the punches that Figueroa was throwing, and he was still able to land some big uppercuts and combinations on the inside, mid range. I just feel like Fulton was superior in every way. He was superior on the outside. He was superior mid range. He was superior on the inside. He's more accurate. I thought he was landing the more effective shots. Fulton to me just looked better. But I will say that after 8 rounds, the ninth through the 12th started to look like the first fight, because the referee was a lot less involved in those rounds. He kind of let them fight their fight as opposed to what he was doing in like the first 4 or 5 rounds. You know what I mean? But congratulations to Fulton. A lot of people counted him out. I was here live, and I can tell you, I asked you guys, like, does anybody have Fulton winning this fight? I don't think anyone here said, prior to the fight that they had Fulton winning the fight. So most people, including my commenting, what I've seen online, I really didn't see many people really support him. That was outside of the people from Philly, you know what I mean? There wasn't many people here. I think someone came on after and they said that they got plus 300 or something on Fulton by decision. If he made money, great. But everybody was really counting him out only because those last 2 fights he had were really, really tough. Now, how does he look against the other champions? I really don't know. Who do you got up there? You got Espinoza. You got Pitt. You got Nick Ball. And you got Angelo Leo, who he's already beaten before, and I think he would beat again. I think he would beat Angelo Leo again. I think Nick Ball is a difficult fight. And I think Espinoza is a difficult fight. But it seems like Nick Ball and Espinoza and they've been doing a lot of talking. Espinoza has said that he wants to stay at the division and try to unify and possibly become undisputed. Again, I know Nick Ball has been doing a lot of talking about fighting Espinoza and fighting a new way if he were to come up. Whatever works. But, congrats to Fulton, because now he is a 2-division champion. He's a former unified champion at 122. And now he's a champion up at 126. He's a 2-division champion. And that's not easy to do, especially with the schedule he's had. He's had a really tough schedule, Yeah, MAW says, I don't know why I decided to pick Fig last minute, but Fulton just totally outclassed Fig. And it is what it is, man. It's part of the game, man. Like, we pick fights every day, every week. It is what it is. You're going to get them right sometimes. You're going to get them wrong sometimes. I try my best, since I have a platform, to be right as much as I can. I've had some great months, and then as I've had back-to-back weeks where I was completely wrong. It is what it is. I went back and reread the comments of my video, my breakdown video, and I didn't see anybody in there picking Fulton. You know what I mean? And clearly the crowd expected Figueroa to win because they booed for like 6 rounds straight. They clearly was getting restless because Figueroa was doing everything he could. He couldn't be effective. It is what it is. We pick them based on what we think and what we see, and previous fights are always going to influence our decision. It's no difference from Morrell and Benavidez. I think my prediction to that fight was heavily influenced off the Hot Rod fight. Because in that fight, that is the only fight I thought Morrell did not look good. And that had influence on my breakdown. It did. Could I have been wrong? Yeah. Could I have Morrell went in there and stopped them? Possibly, but it didn't go that way. Kano Loco, what's up, my brother? How you doing? Shout out to my man from Puerto Rico. But yeah, it is what it is, man. Like, I'm just happy he won. I wanted him to win, but I don't, I don't make predictions based on my feelings. I make predictions based off what I think is the logically the right guy to go with. And it was a tough. I did the breakdown last minute. It took me like 3 days to make a decision. And I had to rewatch the first fight twice again last week. Did I want to watch that fight 2 more times? No, I already seen it a couple times. But it was hard to pick. But I went with Fig. It made the most sense based on their last few performances. Tough loss for Fig. But again, styles make fights. I think Fig still beats guys at 126. I still think he beats guys at 126. He just can't be Fulton. He just can't be Fulton. Fulton has his number. It is what it is. There's still other guys in the division, outside of the champions. I think Fig would have a good shot with Angelo Leo. That would be a great fight. The styles definitely match well in that fight. If he is to get a fight like that, he would have a shot. I think Robesi Ramirez would be a good fight for him. I don't know what Luis Alberto Lopez is doing. I don't know if he's come back. Let's see. Did he come back? He hasn't returned. I mean, his loss was just in August. There's a lot of guys at 126 that Figueroa could still fight. Bruce Carrington is making a lot of noise. He's already calling out Fulton. I don't know if he can be a Fulton. I'm gonna be honest, and of course I'm gonna be, when it comes to Bruce Carrington, I'm team Bruce because he's from New York, you know what I mean? And I would love for him to win these big fights if he were in them. But to be honest, there's nothing I've seen from Bruce Carrington yet that I think made me feel like he can beat a Stephen Fulton, a Naoya Inoue, an Espinoza, and maybe even a Nick Ball. I'm not sure if he can beat those guys. You know what I mean? It is what it is. Like, I like him a lot, and I want him to win, and I'm going to root for him every time he steps in the ring, but I don't know. I don't know. But he's not as young as some of these other young prospect type level guys that's coming up. He's 27, so he needs to get into, he was an amateur for a while. He needs to get into a big fight. But I haven't really seen anything yet that I feel like makes him elite. You know what I mean? Don't sleep on Stephen Fulton. We just slept on him, and look what happened. Don't sleep on him. And I think at his peak, whether you think he's at his peak now, or whether you thought he was in his peak before the Inoue fight, I think Fulton has looked more impressive to me than Carrington. But I would love to see the fight if it were to go down. I know Shushu is going to get a fight with someone soon. I think, yeah, what I would like to see, in Kano Loco just mentioned this, I would like to see unification. And I think right now, I think Espinoza and Nick Ball is the way to go. To me, I just think they've been champions a little bit longer. I think they're a little bit more proven at the division. Leo and Fulton too is the way to go. Let them have their rematch. They're newer guys at 126. Let those two fight, and then have these two fight, and the winner of both can maybe get clash into undisputed. And the plan for me in the new way, and I've told you guys this a long time ago, not that long ago, but Inoue, to me, I think he should move up to 126 to fight one undisputed fight, or or one unification. I don't think going up to 126 and now let these guys at 126 work. Like when he moved up to 122 from 118, I like the fact that we had two unified champions. At least the guys did something there to earn their fight, that big fight. Fulton earned it. You know what I mean? Tapales earned it. These guys at 126 don't fight each other. They don't unify up there. And it's been like that for over a decade. So if Nui's going to move up and take that risk of moving up, don't fight just one champ. Go up there and fight the guy that's proven to be the best at the division. So he could go up there and get a shot at fighting for undisputed, or at least for 2 or 3 belts in one fight. Don't go up there and just be fighting one guy. Like Nick Ball is calling him out. Espinoza, all these guys call him out. What are you guys doing after your division? You're fighting good fights, but unify. Do something that this guy's 4 division champion, 2 division undisputed champ. What have you done outside of just picking up a title? So I would like to see unification at 126, because that division and 160 are just poor divisions right now when it comes to the best fighting the best. All right. So I want to see that. And again, as far as Figueroa, you just lost to the second, you lost to the second time for to the same fighter. It's not over. I think he still has opportunities out there. I just think Fulton's style is Fulton doesn't get credit of how good of an inside fighter he is. And I said this, and I realized that in the Angelo Leo fight. That was a very, very good fight. That was a very, very good fight. The Angelo Leo fight proved that he has dog in him and he can fight on the inside. And he proved it again against Figueroa, in my opinion. And he's a dog in there. I don't know what happened in the Inoue fight. He looked like a completely different fighter. But outside of that fight, and even the Cashapp fight, he didn't look good in. I think Fulton has proven that he's legit. But I would like to see him against Leo too. And then I would like the other 2 champs at 126 to fight each other. That's Nick Ball and Espinoza. Yeah, but 126 is enough. Like, we go back to like when Loma was there, when Abner Morris was there, and Leo Santa Cruz and Gary Russell Jr. Like none of those guys unify at 126. You know what I mean? Like, what are these guys doing at 126? I don't know who was the last featherweight unified champion. We have to probably really go back years. So that's my opinion on that. But good. It was a dominant fight. I think you can't really give Figueroa any rounds outside of the anywhere between 9th and 12th. I think they got a lot more competitive. But I still thought that Fulton, even in those rounds, was cleaner. You know what I mean? He just looked a little gassed, and he's starting to get hit a little bit more. But he was still cleaner with the punches he landed. Lucas says, were they really Tim's he was wearing, or some boxing shoes Tim's imitation? They were boxing shoes Tim's. They weren't real Tim's. I when they first showed them, was like, yo, I hope those are comfortable with him. I don't know if I really like them, because I don't know if those, but they are. I got a couple of looks at them, and they definitely are boxing shoes. What's up, Cross Me Fool? Was good. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about the main event. David Benavidez defeats Dave Morrell on points. Got this prediction right. Got this one right. I did put a little bit down on Morrell by KO hedged. I hedged it a little bit to cover, if he were to win, I thought it was a 50-50 fight. I wanted to cover the loss I would take in the damn decision for Benavidez, but Benavidez pulled through and got the decision. And I thought he was pretty clear in winning. I think Morrell might have caught a couple rounds in that first half. The way I was scoring it, I think I gave him maybe a couple rounds game. I think I threw my scorecard away. But I think the experience, again, this was the key thing. Morrell had hurt him or stopped him early. I think once the fight got to 6 rounds, and I believe both started showing like fatigue, and at least by the 6th round, both started looking like they were tired. But it was no part of me that felt that Morrell was going to be winning this fight in the second half of this fight. Once they got to 6, I had Benavidez, and I know Benavidez. Yeah, I know he said he was injured in the last fight against Bozdik. I don't think Benavidez' cardio is as good as it was at 68. I think Benavidez definitely looked much stronger. Volume was much higher. Power was more effective at 68. He's looked a lot more tired, but he is fighting bigger guys that take the punches better, that can deliver the punches harder as well. And it's a new experience for him too, to be in this division. You know what I mean? I still thought it was clear for Benavidez. Now let's talk about this. Let's talk about this controversial. What round was it? Was the 11th? Was it the 11th round? What round was that? All right, so it's round 11. Let's talk about this controversial round, because I did go back and watch this round specifically. Why? Because there was a knockdown scored, and then it was a point taken. All right, I was trying to call it live. I didn't think the knockdown was legit. I thought it was pretty clear that Benavidez got hit on the arm or shoulder and went down. I did watch the replay. Yes, his arm was up. The punch never landed anywhere clean but his shoulder or in his arm area, and he went down. Okay, he's off balance and he went down. I was listening to this manager of, what's his name, Morrell, right? A lot of back and forth, a lot of talking from him at the presser. I did watch the press. I watched the full thing first thing this morning. He was complaining about the ref. He's like, this guy has refereed Benavidez fights before. He's trying to get a different ref. And, he was talking all this stuff about like how this guy was helping Benavidez. I don't think this guy helped Benavidez in any way. I mean, the guy scored a knockdown that wasn't even truly a knockdown, and the knockdown should have never been a knockdown. Now, when it comes to the point that was taken, at that point, because the knockdown was towards the end of the round, Benavidez fired off at him with a flurry, had him on the ropes. The very last punch that Benavidez threw and landed was exactly at the bell. Now, the referee jumped in between them. Because Benavidez hit him at the bell, Morrell hit him right way after the bell. Now, the ref was in between them, and to be honest, I think that punch was more effective than any other punch that Morrell landed in his fight. That was probably the hardest punch that he landed in that fight. I mean, Benavidez was clearly hurt from that punch, walking back to his corner. Everything stopped. Everything got a little out of hand in the ring. I was kind of nervous it would turn into a Mayweather-Zab Judah situation where everybody jumped in. It looked bad. You know what I mean? But again, it's just one of those moments where Benavidez was pissed off that he called a knockdown and he went crazy. He went at this dude, started throwing a flurry. He threw one punch a little too late. Not his fault, because you know, the ref, you got to get in there. I'm not saying he got in there that late, but he got to get in there. He's throwing a flurry. One landed at the bell, and Morrell threw one back, and the ref took a point. You know, um, I just think that I don't think the point should have been taken, because if you land a shot at the bell or after the bell or whatever, and he returns fire, even if you're in between them, it's just fighter's gonna fight. You know, he was pissed off that he still was getting hit on, and the bell rung, and he returned fire. You know, um, I think if Benavidez would have actually went down, or something like that, then it could have been bad. It could have definitely caused some confusion. A lot of stuff that was happening real fast at the moment. But one thing for certain, I do not think that should have been scored a knockdown at all. And that's my stance on the knockdown. I don't know what people are saying out there. To be honest, I haven't had time to listen to any other influencers, any other commentators. I haven't been on social media. I don't know what people are saying. But from what I seen last night, that was definitely not a knockdown. Definitely not a knockdown. I'm surprised they didn't review it and overturn it on the night of fight, because it was clearly not a knockdown. It was not a clean punch. Yeah. So that's the way I look at that situation. But as far as the fight overall, yeah, no. There was a point where Morrell did hurt Benavidez and bust him. There was a couple punches in the fight where he buzzed Benavidez and in some of those exchanges. But I think that punch after the bell was very effective, and it showed in the 12th round. I think Benavidez was out of it in the 12th round. I think he was out of it in the 12th round. That's where that punch, and it's then I think I actually thought, and I know Morrell, I gave Morrell the 12th round. I thought Morrell was possibly going to stop him in the 12th round, because Benavidez didn't seem like that shot in the 11th round. The end was definitely effective, and Benavidez looked out of it. Like, that's a clear Morrell round, in my opinion. But Morrell was tired too, and Benavidez survived. He went into survival mode. But look, as far as the rest of the fight, I thought Benavidez won clear. I just thought Benavidez was just more consistent every round. Morrell, decides that he had the reach, you know what I mean? The fact that, he fought in the back foot. I didn't see the superior boxing skills that a lot of people were saying that he was going to have in this fight. I didn't see that. I think a lot of those fights that Morrell had was just him being explosive and overwhelming a lot of his opponents. I mean, we knew he had big power. We knew he was a good size. We knew he was strong, explosive, and all that. We knew he can box. But a lot of the times, he had fighters on the ropes and he was able to pick them apart. He didn't really deal with anyone that really fought him back. You know what I mean? Now, when he beat your Bosanelli, right, the guy that he put into a coma, that was the first guy and only guy that I seen Morrell fight off the back foot for the majority of the fight. And he was just easy to hit. So Morrell was able to do his thing against him. And the guy had an iron chin. So that's part of the reason why he took so much damage in the fight. But at the end of the day, there's levels, and Benavidez was much more experienced than Morrell. You know what I mean? Way more experienced when it comes to resume, fighting champions and former champions. He fought so many of them. This guy was a champion years ago. He was already fighting at that level. And I know a lot of people like to diss him and saying he's only fighting PBC guys and all of that stuff. No, this guy has been fighting people for a very, very long time at a young age that was at top contender and championship level. You know, and I know people like to diss him because he calls out Canelo, and I know people are going to still diss him and not give him credit for this win either because he's calling out Canelo, and people are going to say, well, who did he fight? And this guy's overrated after he beats them. They're going to say all that. But at the end of the day, I always thought, and the videos are still up, I thought back then that Benavidez was clearly the best at 168. It's just that he couldn't hold on to the belts. He didn't hold on to the belts because of recreational drugs. He didn't hold on to the belt because he missed weight. That's his fault. He's accountable for that. But at the end of the day, it was clear to me, Plant was there. Right? It took forever to make that fight. And Plant won out of that as far as the timing of the fight because he got the bag with Canelo first. So him holding out was beneficial for him. But up to the Canelo fight, Plant didn't really have anybody on his resume that was really impressive. You know, I thought Benavidez had the better resume. And I thought stylistically he would have been a problem for Plant when he got to him. You know? And you had Callum Smith, who really was unproven too. Him and Billy Joe should have been fighting each other. They were both champs. Did Callum Smith really beat John Ryder? I don't think so. I think John Ryder won the fight. But a lot of those guys were unproven. So when people say Benavidez was unproven, Benavidez, in my opinion, at 168 had a better resume than all those guys. And as time goes on, he still continued to do that. He beat Plant. He beat Andrade. He beat Volzdig. And now he's beating Morrell. Like, what are you going to say at this point? What are you going to say at this point? I got called a hater for just wanting to see the fight. If Canelo can give us a fight with Billy Joe, Callum Smith, you know, Caleb Plant, why couldn't we get the Benavidez fight? If you could give me Edgar Berlanga, if you could give me Jaime Munguia, if you could give me John Ryder, why we couldn't get the Benavidez fight? I want to see him fight Canelo. Oh, you're a hater. What? Is that what we're doing now? Just calling people haters for asking for a fight? Oh, you just want to see him lose. No, that's you in your mind thinking that Canelo could possibly lose. It is his toughest fight at 168. It was. And this guy continues to prove, and people want Benavidez to lose because it would be like, oh, he got exposed. He never really was that good. If he had got knocked out yesterday, that's the first thing what people would have said this morning. He's continuing to prove that he's clearly a top elite fighter. You know, he's an elite fighter. Now, when it comes to Bivol and Benavidez, that's different. I never picked against Benavidez in a fight. All right. No breakdown that I've ever done of him, I've ever picked against him. Depending on how this rematch go, I don't think Benavidez is better than Bivol or Benavidez. I think Arthur is a true pressure fighter. I think he is the best pressure fighter in the world. You know what I mean? I think he's the best pressure fighter. I mean, you could technically call Usyk a pressure fighter in a way, you know, but I think Benavidez's level of cardio, even at his age, at like 40, he's different. His punches are harder. His cardio is better. You know, I always say Benavidez is a beast in the second half of the fight. Benavidez is even better of a beast in the second half of the fight if it goes there. because even Bivol started to get overwhelmed in the second half of the fight. And when it comes to Bivol, his boxing, I mean, people were saying Morrell has great. I don't think. Yo, let me make one thing straight. I don't think Morrell is in a better boxer than Benavidez neither. Benavidez proved to me, like, do you see the defense between the two? The difference? They both fight in the high guard. Whenever Benavidez is throwing, he's attacking every opening that he can get to this guy's high guard. He's punching straight rights, punching right through it, connecting with hooks right around, looping them right around that high guard. And he's punishing the body. Anytime Morrell is throwing a combination flurry, it's getting blocked. It's getting parried. Like Benavidez is just swinging his arms up, blocking everything. There's levels. Benavidez, to me, didn't just outwork Morrell, but he was a better boxer. He was a superior boxer to him. He's superior. It is what it is. Morrell is very powerful, and Benavidez said it himself. He's definitely the hardest puncher that he's faced. But when it comes to talent overall and experience, because experience is a huge factor in this fight, Morrell was just better. I'm sorry, Benavidez. Benavidez was better. Now, look, moving forward, the way I look at it is like this. Benavidez right now is in position to fight the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol. Will it happen? I don't know. It could happen. It may not happen. I'm going to tell you why. If Bivol wins the rematch, and I feel like most of you believe that Bivol won the first fight, if Bivol happens to win the rematch, there will probably be a third fight between him and Beterbiev, right? Strong possibility that Bivol may win the rematch. May. So Benavidez most likely won't get that fight. And it's possible that if they have a third fight, it may not be for undisputed, because maybe one of them the winner will probably end up getting stripped for a title or two. It might be like a Fury Usyk situation, depending on the timing, depending on whatever. Now, what I love for Benavidez, I keep confusing Beterbiev and Benavidez. Benavidez, I would love him to fight a Yard, a Smith, a Buatsi, whoever's top at 175. I would love to see those kind of fights. But if he has an opportunity to fight a champion at 175, that takes priority over these other guys. I think Buatsi is the only one that hasn't fought for a title yet. Yard has been in there with two champions, lost both. He has a fight schedule, and Callum Smith and Buatsi is already fighting each other. They're scheduled to fight each other. But Callum Smith has been in there in two title fights as well. He's fought Canelo, and he's fought at 175. He's already fought Beterbiev. He lost as well. So I would love Benavidez to fight one of those guys. But if there's an opportunity for it'd be a fight between him and Bivol or Beterbiev, you gotta go for that. You gotta go for that. You gotta go for that. Yeah. I like Trey. Yeah, I like what you just said. I kind of agree with that. I'm leaning towards Benavidez beating all of them outside of the two champs. And it goes for Morrell too. I would love to see Morrell against all of those guys I just said. I would love to see Morrell against Buatsi, Yard. Yard is a perfect fight to me. I think Yard and Morrell have a lot of things in common. Yard at this point has more experience. well, I wouldn't even say that because Yard really doesn't take the toughest fights in between the tough fights. But they both have had cardio issues. They're both explosive. They're both powerful. Um, I don't think both of them, I think they both have their limits in certain areas. I think that would be a great matchup. I think Yard and Morrell, like I was already thinking in my head, I want to see Yard and Morrell. I was thinking this last night. I want to see that fight. But I would love to see Morrell against any of those guys, and I would love to see Benavidez against any of those guys if he doesn't get the champions. But I think he's deserving of a championship fight right now. But I see Bivol neutralizing him. It won't be easy, but I see if they were to fight, I think Bivol would neutralize him, and I think Beterbiev will outwork him, and in my opinion, outbox him and even overpower him. But it'd be a great fight. It would be a great fight. It would be a great fight. But you never know. Let's see this rematch. I think the one thing that Beterbiev has against them is time. Like, how long is he going to continue looking this great before age really is going to be a factor? It hasn't been noticeable yet. How long? I think his training is so high level that it keeps him performing. These guys that are like gym rats, like him and Bud and Usyk, guys that like are fit all year round, even when they're not active, even if they fight once a year or twice a year, these guys are able to perform. These are why these guys are like top 5 pound for pound. These are the guys that are fit all the time and they do extensive training all year round, even when they're not active. You know what I mean? I think that's part of the reason why, as they age, they're still able to look so good. They really truly live a boxer's life. I think Morrell, I just think that he definitely needs to work on some things, as a boxer. I just think, jab, throw the right hand, throw a flurry. Defensively wasn't good. Controlling distance, he wasn't that good. No probing, no level changing. I don't see the head movement. I don't see the twitch like reflexes. Like, I think he's good, but I never thought he was special. I thought he was just good at blitzing lower level fighters. So yeah, we'll see, but I think he should definitely stay out the weight. I just think that he just need to work on a few things, Was the WBC belt vacant? Are we talking about what fight? Are we talking about the WBC at 175? No, this was an interim title shot between Benavidez, who was the WBC interim champ, and Morrell was the WBA interim champ. All right. So now Benavidez is both the WBC and the WBA interim champ. Interim titles is on the line. Full titles will be on the line again in the rematch between Benavidez and Bivol. Okay. So no, the WBC title was not on the line, just interim titles. All right. All right. So I think I cleared everything up. Again, I had a great time last night. Thanks you guys for checking me out. Whoever checked in. Please, everybody that's here, everybody, please hit the thumbs up for me. I appreciate the support the channel by hitting the thumbs up and subscribe. And please hit the bell notification when you subscribe to the channel. All right, you have to. It's very important. I know a lot of you guys are leaving comments saying that you're not getting the notifications. Make sure everything is good on your settings on your smartphone and all of that. All right. We got fights coming up this weekend. I'm probably gonna work on the Keyshawn Davis Baranchik breakdown next. So I'll start doing film study probably as early as tomorrow, if not today. And I'll give you the breakdown. So be on the lookout for the breakdown for that. And any other fights at that card. If I could squeeze any other breakdowns for that card, I'll let you guys know. All right. Anyway, I'm out. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys. Have a good Sunday. Peace.